Director Alex Herron brings us Dark Windows, which is effectively a kind of modern equivalent of I Know What You Did Last Summer. It tells the story of three friends who go to a kind of house in the middle of nowhere to get away from the stress of a situation that they're all involved in, where a fourth member of this friendship group was killed in an automobile accident some time before, and they're all feeling somewhat kind of sorry about it, you might say. So they go to this house with the intention of just having some time away from the families and everything. However, they seem to be stalked by a masked individual who may have a connection to what happened. Now, what will happen, you will have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's talk about Dark Windows. This is very much, to me, a somewhat run-of-the-mill slasher movie. It is a somewhat paint by numbers is the best way I would kind of describe it. It's certainly not a bad film, but I don't think it's anything special, to be brutally honest. But let me go into a little bit more detail about what does work, and then we'll talk about what doesn't. And what does work is, I think the performances are solid. I think our characters, with one exception, for the most part, pretty consistent and make for kind of a believable kind of group of friends. I think our main character, our main girl, the sense of guilt that she is feeling, I think is quite palpable. So I quite enjoyed the performances, and for the most part I enjoyed the way these kind of characters are written. There is one quite unique death scene in this movie that is kind of related to a vice that a particular character has, which I thought was kind of quite inventive and something I don't remember really seeing before, to be brutally honest. So that was pretty good. The movie on a technical element is relatively kind of well shot and put together on a kind of a technical basis. Everything is where it should be. The kind of the sound design is fine. The kind of camera placement is fine. It's maybe a little. It could have had a little bit more on the cinematography, perhaps, but I think it's certainly okay. You know, it's all pretty good in regards to its kind of technical elements, and the story is, you know, somewhat kind of what you think it's going to be, but it's a workable kind of story. Like I say, very much like I Know What You Did Last Summer. What doesn't work for me, it is such a kind of vanilla movie in many ways. It is, as I say, very much a kind of, not a remake, but it takes that template and just kind of, you know, puts its own spin on it ultimately. Is there anything kind of outstandingly awful that to point you out? A couple of things, just to mention one thing that I kind of touched upon. The kind of the character motivations I felt were a bit wobbly, particularly from a character called Monica, who is kind of the second female of this kind of trio of friends, because we see her flip-flop in regards to her opinions on the whole situation. For example, she is quick to defend our main character when she is approached by someone at the funeral of a friend who is kind of having a go at her, but then she seems to, in a few scenes later, seems to go, oh, just don't worry about it anymore, it's kind of behind us now. So I found her character to be a little inconsistent. Relatively minor, doesn't affect masses of the plot. One bugbear that I have, that a lot of movies do this, is they show a scene towards the end of the movie, at the beginning of the movie, and then work back. And this undercuts tension. It's a trope that I hate. I wish filmmakers wouldn't do it. For a start, we see right at the beginning that we have our main girl being kind of stalked by a guy, right? So we know that there is someone stalking her, right? Her other friends are not there, so we know that they're at this point something else has happened to them. The movie also initially tries to tease the idea that this house is haunted, but we know that isn't the case, because we see a scene right at the beginning where it kind of like, where we see that there is a kind of an individual, shall we say. It's just like, why do filmmakers do this? It undercuts attention with the film then tries to build up. But we know that scene is at some point going to happen. It really irritates me. Okay. What else? So, I have to say this movie's main crime, I would say, is just kind of generic and very obvious. The cast isn't massive. Now, the movie positions it like the killer is someone connected to the events that happened, and it's clearly a guy. And we see two guys that are kind of in the previous to this. So it's going to be like, it doesn't take a genius to work out who it is. And there's clearly an attempt at like a misdirect, and it's so obvious that he's like, well, that's clearly not that person. It's like so obvious. This movie is like really just so blatant, I think, and it's just so generic. It's like 101 in regards to the script. What I think is, it's not bad, it's workable, it's workmanlike, but it's nothing outstanding. It's just kind of what you've seen before. It's exactly what you expect. You know, it does it to an okay standard. The movie called Dark Windows, and if you look at the poster and stuff, I think the poster gives you this kind of like this more of a creepy vibe than the movie actually is. I don't think the movie is as creepy as it could have been. Like I said, it's relatively obvious, like, who the killer is, at least to me. And it's kind of like, well, why wear a mask? You know, why wear a mask? Because the only reason you would wear a mask is to hide your identity. And if that's not a priority for this person, why even do it? It didn't make sense in the context of the story. Now, I won't spoil it, I won't spell it out for you, but it doesn't make sense that the person would wear a mask, to be honest. Again, this person seems to be able to teleport. Seems to move out the way of the window when characters happen to look round. This is not a supernatural entity we're talking about here. It's very much a generic movie, I think. So to score this one, to be honest with you, I was tempted to give it a 4. There are some things to me that knock this down, but I'll give it a 5. I'll give it a bang on 5 because it's just bang on average to me. It's not a bad film. If you like this type of movie, if you like kind of I Know What We Did Last Summer, it's watchable, but it's not going to rock your world. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10 for a bang on average movie. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.